Does the NFL have a quarterback development problem? Because now we're at this point after the Anthony Richardson news of him being benched, and they said Joe Flacco is going to be the starter moving forward, not just for a game.
Yeah.
He's the guy unless we hear otherwise. Unless an injury happens, Joe Flacco is going to be the starting quarterback, and that's I can't wait for primetime Joe in that game.
Too.
Vikings, Colts. But Anthony Richardson is now benched. Bryce Young is now only starting because Andy Dalton was in a car accident. And now he's going to be starting again for back-to-back games. He was benched. He was the number 1 overall pick in 2023. Adam Schefter had a conversation with Dan Orlovsky, and this was after comments Mel Kiper made. I will read the Mel Kiper comment after Adam Schefter speaks, but they're talking about the situation that's happening here with developing young quarterbacks in the NFL.
There is a world in which it continues to repeat itself over and over. We build up these guys before the draft. Yeah. Everybody goes all in. 1 or 2 may make it. Everybody else crashes and burns, and the cycle starts back over again.
Correct.
So here we have this year already the 1st and 4th overall selections in the 2023 draft. Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson both benched already. Both their futures are in question with those respective franchises. We saw it with Zach Wilson. We saw it with Trey Lance. We saw it with Mac Jones. We saw it with Justin Fields in Chicago. We see it with most every quarterback. Now, rare is the case where C.J. Stroud jumps up and becomes the star that he has become, or Jaden Daniels, who we were just talking about, jumps up and becomes a star. That is the rarity. Most of these guys wash out, and we build them up. And we're going to start building up Shedeur Sanders and Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers and all these other guys for the 2025 draft, and inevitably, 1 or 2 of them will make it, and the rest will wash out.
So the reality is, in general, not all first-round picks, not just quarterbacks, are not going to pan out. That hasn't changed. We're all in agreement on that.
Yeah.
But to finish the quote from Mel Kiper on developing quarterbacks, it was, if you're making mistakes, you're done. What's happening now is what we're seeing, the mental destruction of a quarterback. Mm-hmm. And look, we've already discussed with Bryce Young going into a tough situation in Carolina from the start. And he got his confidence beaten out of him down there. And then so far, he plays a couple games, and then they pull the plug on him again for Andy Dalton. We've seen what Justin Fields went through when he played with Chicago, a team that already knew that they were not ready to win at that moment. We can go through the list of players here, and the tweet that I actually had here, guys, was Sam Block, and I'm going to share my screen here. Sam Block tweeted out just an idea of how many of the quarterbacks recently have now been benched. And can you guys see the screen now?
Yep.
So you can look at what Sam Block, and great tweet by him. Anthony Richardson's 22, Bryce Young's 23, Trey Lance 24, Justin Fields 25, Levis 25, Zach Wilson 25, Mac Jones and Kenny Pickett both 26. All are now benched, right? And of that group, Mac Jones started from the get-go. Kenny Pickett got an early run at being the quarterback there, but I'm going to give I think Pittsburgh gave him a fair share, and I think that Mike Tomlin's done his coaching resume kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah.
But for the other guys, man, all of a sudden, new coaches come in, new philosophy. That's what happened with guys like Justin Fields. Zach Wilson came in where they felt the roster was ready, and he was not ready. I mean, Brad, we talked about this for a long time here, and we're looking at some of the examples. The one that we go to constantly was Jordan Love recently, where he sat behind Aaron Rodgers for years, and now it looks like that was the right decision, and that needs to be talked about.
It's not a coincidence to me anyway that the Packers have now had their 3rd generational quarterback in a row.
Yeah.
And I think that it has everything to do with the fact that they are sitting for at least a year. Aaron Rodgers sat for what, 2-3 years, maybe even more than that. Anyways, so I just don't think that that's by accident, and that's how things used to be done. And I'm not trying to be that get off my lawn guy, but I just don't think that's a coincidence that we see stuff like that from organizations that seemingly know how to develop a quarterback. We saw that from Patrick Mahomes. He sat down for a year, his first year. And then while Alex Smith was there. We saw obviously what Patrick Mahomes has done since then. You could probably make the argument that maybe Patrick Mahomes would have had a CJ Stroud type of rookie year had he been thrown in there. But I'm telling you, there's got to be a significant advantage to just sitting your first year, almost kind of like being a red shirt in the NFL.
The development there, like you can even say with Trevor Lawrence, the Jaguars have regressed with Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I think two things can be true. The NFL does have an issue with giving quarterbacks time to develop. It is a league where right now, if you are not showing production in the first year or two, it is somebody else's job. But I think the other part that can be true is there are 32 starting quarterbacks in the National Football League. Only 32. That is not a lot of spots. And in a lot of cases, as kind of Schefter talked about, these guys just aren't cut for it. These guys aren't talented enough, whether it's the mental game catches up to them. It becomes too fast. We're at a day and age where, unfortunately, because of the lack of development, it's led to these guys, if they are not ready to roll and be a starter in the first 2 years, it's done. We see it with Zach Wilson. We've seen it with guys. Josh Rosen got a half season after being the, ninth pick? He got a half season. Then they, like you said, Ryan, new coaches come in. They wanted Kyler Murray. Now, Rosen, sorry, your career's completely over. So it is one of those things where I think two things are true. Some of these guys aren't talented enough, and that makes it harder for these guys that need just time, because NFL teams are looking, going, okay, if guys don't develop after 2 years, it's over. It's an absurdity for a situation like Brad, you brought up. The Packers don't care. They'll draft a guy in the first round and have him sit 3 years because they know that that is going to give them the best chance to succeed. So I think it's kind of both things are happening. Guys aren't getting time to develop, and then unfortunately, some guys just aren't cut out to be in the NFL at a starting quarterback level.
Yeah, I mean, right there, Kev, to wrap this conversation up, I mean, we want to look at, obviously, let's look at some of the ones that were the number one overall picks, like Peyton Manning, who had his struggles to begin, but he was ready to be an NFL quarterback, but had to learn the system of it. Andrew Luck, but again, going to places where they could try to change things around, but there was a good infrastructure at least in place for those guys. There's going to be these number one picks like Jaden Daniels. Like, he looks like a surefire, locked in star. Also played a lot of games in college, by the way.
Yeah.
Adds to it. Now, Caleb Williams, I can't even tell if it's the coach, and that's a part of the coaching infrastructure. And he's been hyped up, as Brad knows, as to be the next best thing that we've ever seen. But that pressure's on him. It's not a great situation as far as, I don't think development-wise in Chicago, but they're expecting him to be the guy. So I want to just make a point of that. The guys that I just mentioned, Manning, Stafford's another guy. Luck would have been, those are three guys that'd be Hall of Famers.
Drew Brees
that are off the bat.
Was another one.
Yeah. Drew Brees went from the Chargers then to the Saints and became Drew Brees. So, Kevin, I mean, there is a thing of some of these guys that we're mentioning could end up being stars. I looked at Brett Favre, by the way, with the Falcons, didn't play that year. Sat out. Yep. So just the context of it. But this is the slippery slope that you're playing in. You better hope that you're in a situation and the quarterback's mindset is ready to be, and this is the other phrase that's been thrown around, you have to not only be the leader on the field, you're also the leader of the organization. And that's a hard thing for a young adult to try to be able to decipher.
Yeah, and I think there are a bunch of other factors that we can throw into this conversation. But I mean, the first one being that there's a level of sitting behind an established veteran and learning the game for a set amount of years, especially when, if we want to relate it back to Anthony Richardson, a guy who barely started in high school and college, like that was the big thing on him coming out. But I think even organizationally, it can put teams and even coaches, executives in a tough spot when, you draft the guy super high up and he might not be ready, but the way that they sell it is, okay, experience trumps all, and you go and you let that guy play. When in reality, it'd be better if the guy sat. And sometimes it can be, is a, low-level backup quarterback for a year and a half going to sell as many tickets as starting your high-profile guy? Like, what teams have to make the decision solely based off of the success of that young player's career, because in the long run, that will take you where you need to go. And if there are any other underlying factors, you can't have it happen. But in today's game, compared to where we were, however you want to go back 10 years, 20 years, whatever, it has been an organizational shift across the league. And it seems like really it's the organizations that are drafting at the top seemingly always are there because they can never get it right because they try so quickly to thrust the guy in that isn't ready. And I mean, Adam Schefter has a point where it's like one or two of these guys will work out. The organization sets them up well, this, that, and the other. But then the rest of the guys will wash out because, well, okay, a guy has a year that's terrible. And all of a sudden, instead of, oh, well, maybe development is needed, it's, oh, is this really the option for the future of whatever franchise? And that can take honestly, probably a toll on these quarterbacks' mental as well, of just like questioning themselves, figuring things out. So it has been such a shift. And, I think the numbers speak for themselves when you talk about success rate back then versus where we are now.
Yeah. And I mean, hey, being too much thrusting can get you in trouble, Kevin, I think is what I took from your words there. But it's true. And overall, to finish out that point here, did you like that one, Zach? Do you like how I just zinged that one in there for Toucan Sam?
When Kevin said it, I was like, oh, Kevin. And then I was waiting for something.
Come on. Oh, man.
It was a good thrust here, but this is the point that we're trying to make too. And this is across all sports, by the way. But Kevin, other Kevin, like this Kevin better. Just kidding, Kevin. Wow. You're a good kid. I don't care what the rest of the comments say about you.
Thank you.
But roster mismanagement has also not helped the Jags, talking about Trevor Lawrence. But that's the point we're trying to make, right? You want to be in a place that it's a solid infrastructure. Brad, the Packers, pretty good team over the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
Pretty good team. Kevin, Chiefs been pretty good since Andy Reid's been there.
Pretty good.
One of the best teams, right? Oh, how about Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, Zach? Pretty good franchise and stable organization.
Well, don't ask the fan base after some weeks, but overall, very good.
Yeah, we're not going to ask the fan bases about that. That's for damn sure. But it is a good point to have here. And again, another good point or thing that I need to mention to you all is make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. The Ryan Ripken Show, we do this live every Monday and Thursday and Sunday. We'll be back. Zach's going to be boots on the ground as we get ready for the Broncos and Ravens.